The clock ticks in the silence of your mind, a sound so faint it almost doesn't exist. And yet, it's there. A relentless metronome counting down something you cannot name. You sit in your favorite chair, surrounded by the familiar comforts of your life. The worn book on the side table, the soft glow of lamplight, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the other room. Everything feels safe here, predictable, unchanging. But beneath this veneer of calm lies an unease you can't quite articulate. It whispers to you in moments like these, when the world outside seems distant and the walls of your comfort zone feel just a little too close. Why does safety sometimes feel suffocating? Why does certainty breed discontent? You've built your life around avoiding discomfort, steering clear of risks that might disrupt the delicate balance you've created. Yet here you are, staring into the void of your own thoughts, wondering why the very things meant to protect you now seem to imprison you. Is it possible that what keeps you safe is also killing you? Imagine for a moment standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over an endless expanse of ocean. The wind tugs at your clothes, sharp and insistent, as if urging you forward. Your heart pounds not from fear, but from exhilaration, an electric thrill coursing through your veins. Now picture yourself stepping back, retreating to a place where the air is still and the horizon fades into obscurity. Which version of yourself feels more alive? And why does the thought of staying put bring both relief and regret? This paradox haunts us all. We crave stability, yet it bores us. We seek security, yet it stifles us. What is it about the familiar that lulls us into complacency while simultaneously draining our vitality? The answer isn't simple because the problem runs deeper than habit or routine. It touches something primal within you, the part of you that yearns for growth but fears the unknown, the part that hungers for meaning but settles for mediocrity. Consider the story of a man who spends his entire life working a job he tolerates, living in a house he doesn't love, pursuing dreams handed down to him by others. He tells himself he's happy enough. That contentment is better than chaos. But late at night, when the distractions fade and the silence grows loud, he wonders if happy enough is really enough. Has he traded passion for peace, only to find neither fully satisfies him? Or worse, has he mistaken comfort for happiness, mistaking the absence of pain for the presence of joy? And what about you? How often have you chosen the easier path, the safer option, the known outcome, only to feel a gnawing emptiness afterward? Perhaps it was taking the stable job instead of chasing the uncertain dream. Maybe it was staying in a relationship long after the spark had dimmed, clinging to the illusion of security rather than facing the risk of solitude. Each decision felt rational at the time, even wise. But now, looking back, do they feel fulfilling? Or do they weigh on you like stones tied to your ankles, dragging you further away from the person you could become? There is a reason why the phrase comfort zone carries such weight in our collective consciousness. It promises sanctuary, protection from the storms of uncertainty and failure. But what if that sanctuary is less a refuge and more a gilded cage? What if the walls you've built to shield yourself from harm are blocking out not just danger, but possibility? Every choice you make to stay within those walls reinforces their strength, making escape harder with each passing day. And yet the alternative, stepping outside, is terrifying. It demands vulnerability, courage, faith in something unseen. Who wouldn't hesitate before taking that leap? But consider this. What happens if you never take the leap? What becomes of your potential, your creativity, your soul, if you remain forever confined by the limits of what feels safe? Are you willing to let fear dictate the boundaries of your existence? To trade the fleeting warmth of comfort for the enduring chill of regret? Think of the great artists, thinkers, and revolutionaries throughout history. None of them stayed safely ensconced in their comfort zones. They ventured into uncharted territories, confronted their deepest fears, and emerged transformed, not always victorious, but undeniably alive. Their lives were messy, imperfect, and fraught with struggle. Yet they burned brightly, leaving behind legacies that continued to inspire centuries later. Would they have achieved such greatness had they chosen comfort over courage? Would their names be remembered if they'd played it safe? Now turn your gaze inward. What legacy will you leave behind? Will it be one of boldness and discovery, or one of quiet resignation? Will you spend your days tiptoeing around risk, clinging to the illusion of control? Or will you dare to step beyond the confines of what you know? These questions aren't rhetorical. They demand answers, even if those answers scare you. The tension between safety and growth is not new. Philosophers and poets have wrestled with it for millennia, framing it in different ways but always arriving at the same conclusion. Stagnation is death. Whether it's Nietzsche declaring that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, or Camus insisting that the absurdity of life must be embraced rather than avoided, the message remains constant. Life requires movement, expansion, transformation. Without these, we may exist, but we do not truly live. So ask yourself again, why does your comfort zone feel so lethal? Why does the idea of breaking free terrify you more than the prospect of remaining trapped? The answers lie ahead, waiting to be uncovered. But first, you must confront the hidden forces shaping your choices, the psychological chains binding you to the status quo. Only then can you begin to understand how deeply rooted this issue is, and how profoundly it affects every aspect of your being. As the ticking clock echoes in your mind, remember this: time is not infinite. Every moment spent hesitating, doubting, clinging to the familiar is a moment lost forever. Will you let it slip away unnoticed, or will you seize it with both hands, determined to uncover the truth? The journey begins now, with the courage to question everything you thought you knew. The roots of this invisible prison run deeper than you might imagine, entangled in the very fabric of human psychology and philosophy. To understand why your comfort zone holds such sway over you, you must first confront the paradoxical nature of human existence, the tension between security and freedom, order and chaos, self-preservation and self-transcendence. This duality has haunted humanity since its earliest days, shaping our instincts, our societies, and our souls. Carl Jung, that great cartographer of the unconscious, spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny or suppress in the name of conformity and safety. Your comfort zone is not merely a set of familiar habits. It is a fortress built to protect you from the unknown, but also from the parts of yourself you fear. What lies beyond those walls? Uncertainty, yes, but also potential. Growth requires confronting the shadow, stepping into the uncharted territory where your true self resides. Yet how many of us willingly venture there? How many instead choose to fortify the walls, clinging to the illusion that safety equals happiness? Consider Nietzsche's assertion that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The philosopher understood that meaning does not arise from ease or comfort, but from struggle and challenge. When you remain within the confines of what feels safe, you deny yourself the opportunity to discover your why. You trade purpose for predictability, depth for shallowness. And yet the allure of the known is intoxicating. It promises relief from anxiety, protection from failure, insulation from pain. But at what cost? As Viktor Frankl observed in the darkest corners of human suffering, life's greatest meaning often emerges from its most difficult moments. By avoiding discomfort, are you not also avoiding the possibility of profound transformation? Jean-Paul Sartre took this idea further, arguing that existence precedes essence. You are not born with a predetermined purpose. You must create it through your choices. Each decision you make reinforces certain aspects of your identity while neglecting others. When you consistently choose comfort over courage, you construct an identity rooted in limitation rather than liberation. Over time, this constrained sense of self becomes indistinguishable from who you believe yourself to be. The tragedy is not that you fail to reach your potential. It is that you forget you even have one. Arthur Schopenhauer offered a bleaker perspective, suggesting that much of human behavior is driven by an insatiable will to survive, coupled with an inability to find lasting satisfaction. In this view, your attachment to the comfort zone is less about genuine safety and more about escaping the inherent dissatisfaction of existence. You seek refuge in routine because it distracts you from the void, the unsettling awareness that life is fleeting and ultimately meaningless without context. This existential dread lurks beneath every seemingly rational choice you make, whispering that change is dangerous, risk is foolish, and staying put is wise. But perhaps the most insidious force keeping you trapped is not existential despair, but societal conditioning. From childhood, you are taught to value stability, obedience, and conformity. Schools reward compliance over creativity. Workplaces incentivize efficiency over exploration. Cultures celebrate success defined by external metrics like wealth and status. Thinkers like Zygmunt Bauman have explored how modern society perpetuates this cycle, creating systems that prioritize security over individuality. In such a world, stepping outside the norm feels not just risky, but rebellious. A direct challenge to the structures designed to keep you docile and predictable. Jiddu Krishnamurti saw these structures as prisons of the mind, arguing that true freedom comes only when you break free from the psychological dependencies imposed by society. He believed that most people live in a state of conditioned thought, unable to see reality clearly because their perceptions are clouded by preconceived notions and fears. Your comfort zone is not just a personal construct. It is a reflection of collective values that prioritize survival over transcendence, control over curiosity. To step outside it is to defy not only your own fears, but also the expectations of those around you. Gabor Mate adds another layer to this understanding, emphasizing the role of trauma and emotional wounds in shaping human behavior. According to Mate, many of the choices you make, especially those that seem irrational or self-limiting, are attempts to cope with unresolved pain. Staying within your comfort zone may feel like a way to avoid triggering old wounds, but in doing so, you reinforce the patterns that keep you stuck. Healing requires facing these wounds head-on, embracing vulnerability rather than fleeing from it. Only then can you begin to dismantle the psychological barriers holding you captive. And yet, despite all these insights, the pull of the comfort zone remains strong. Why? Because it offers something seductive: certainty. Human beings are wired to seek patterns, to impose order on chaos, to reduce ambiguity wherever possible. Cognitive biases like loss aversion and the status quo bias ensure that you perceive change as inherently threatening, even when staying the same poses greater risks in the long term. Neurologically, your brain craves dopamine hits from familiar rewards, making novelty feel uncomfortable and effortful by comparison. These mechanisms served our ancestors well in environments where survival depended on quick, instinctual decisions. But in a world where physical threats are minimal and psychological ones abound, they become liabilities rather than assets. Imagine for a moment the cumulative effect of these forces operating beneath the surface of your consciousness. On one side, evolutionary instincts push you towards safety and repetition. On the other, societal pressures encourage conformity and predictability. Meanwhile, deep philosophical questions about meaning and identity tug at your soul, urging you to seek something more. Caught in this web of conflicting influences, is it any wonder you find yourself paralyzed, torn between the desire to grow and the need to stay grounded? This internal conflict manifests in subtle ways. Perhaps you dream of writing a novel but convince yourself you're too busy. Or maybe you yearn to travel the world, but talk yourself out of it by listing all the practical reasons why it's impossible. Each justification feels rational, even noble, but beneath them lies a deeper truth. You are afraid. Afraid of failure, of judgment, of discovering that the life you've built isn't enough. And so you stay put, telling yourself that tomorrow will be different, that someday you'll take the leap. But tomorrow never comes, does it? What makes this trap so insidious is its invisibility. Unlike physical barriers, the walls of your comfort zone are intangible, woven from beliefs, fears, and assumptions you rarely question. They shape your reality without you realizing it, influencing everything from the goals you set to the relationships you form. You may believe you are exercising free will, making conscious choices based on careful consideration. But how many of those choices are truly yours, and how many are dictated by the hidden forces shaping your psyche? The implications extend far beyond the individual level. Societies themselves are reflections of collective comfort zones, governed by norms and traditions that resist disruption. Consider how resistant cultures can be to innovation, how quickly revolutionary ideas are met with skepticism or hostility. Even movements aimed at progress often face backlash from those invested in maintaining the status quo. On a macro scale, the same dynamics that keep you trapped in your personal comfort zone stifle broader social evolution. Change is always accompanied by discomfort, and few are willing to endure it unless forced by circumstances. Yet history shows that transformation is inevitable. Every era of human advancement has been marked by individuals and groups willing to step outside their comfort zones, to question established truths and embrace uncertainty. From Galileo challenging geocentrism to Martin Luther King Jr. defying segregation, these figures did not act out of comfort or convenience. They acted out of conviction, driven by a vision of what could be rather than what was. Their courage reminds us that growth, whether personal or societal, requires sacrifice. It demands that we relinquish the familiar in pursuit of the extraordinary. As you reflect on these insights, consider the weight of the forces arrayed against you. Evolutionary biology, societal conditioning, psychological defenses, all conspire to keep you tethered to the known. Breaking free is not simply a matter of willpower. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective, a willingness to confront the deepest recesses of your being. The journey ahead will not be easy, nor should it be. True liberation seldom comes without struggle. But if you are to escape the suffocating grip of your comfort zone, you must first understand the intricate web of influences holding you captive. And now, having peeled back the layers of this hidden problem, you stand at a crossroads. The path forward promises clarity, but also confrontation. For embedded within these psychological and philosophical roots lie unseen consequences, silent forces that shape your reality in ways you scarcely realize. To grasp their full extent is to awaken to the urgency of escape, to recognize that remaining trapped is not merely a personal failing but a betrayal of your highest potential. The next revelation awaits, carrying with it both warning and promise. The unseen consequences of remaining trapped in your comfort zone ripple outward like waves, shaping not only your inner world but also the fabric of your relationships, ambitions, and even society itself. These forces operate quietly, invisibly, yet their impact is profound, often manifesting in ways you may not immediately recognize. They erode your vitality, dull your senses, and diminish your capacity to engage fully with life. To ignore them is to allow yourself to be shaped by default rather than design. Consider first how cognitive biases cement the walls of your confinement. The status quo bias tricks you into believing that what currently exists must necessarily continue to exist, that change is inherently disruptive or undesirable. This mental shortcut lulls you into complacency, convincing you that maintaining the present state requires less effort than pursuing something new. But what if the opposite were true? What if staying put demands more energy in the long run, as you expend precious resources suppressing doubts, stifling desires, and rationalizing stagnation? Loss aversion compounds this effect, amplifying your fear of giving up what you already have. Psychologically, losses loom larger than gains, making the prospect of leaving your comfort zone feel disproportionately risky. You cling to the familiar, not because it fulfills you, but because losing it feels unbearable. Yet this attachment blinds you to the opportunities beyond. Opportunities that could enrich your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. By prioritizing avoidance over aspiration, you inadvertently trade potential growth for guaranteed mediocrity. Neurologically, Your brain reinforces these patterns through habit loops. Every time you choose safety over challenge, your basal ganglia encode the behavior, strengthening neural pathways associated with routine. Over time, this creates a kind of psychological inertia. The more you repeat certain actions, the harder it becomes to deviate from them. Your comfort zone ceases to be a choice. It becomes an automatic response, a default setting programmed into your very biology. Breaking free thus requires conscious effort, a deliberate rewiring of circuits forged over years, if not decades. But the consequences extend far beyond individual neurology. On an emotional level, staying within your comfort zone fosters a subtle yet pervasive form of numbness. Think about the last time you truly felt alive, not merely content, but electrified by the raw intensity of experience. Chances are, it occurred during a moment of risk or uncertainty, when you stepped outside the boundaries of what felt safe. That exhilaration is no accident. It arises from engaging with novelty, which stimulates dopamine release and activates reward centers in the brain. When you avoid such experiences, you deprive yourself of this natural high, settling instead for the muted satisfaction of predictability. This emotional numbing has cascading effects on your identity. Over time, you begin to define yourself by what you avoid, rather than what you pursue. I'm not the kind of person who takes risks, you might say, or I don't handle stress well. Such statements start as observations, but gradually harden into self-fulfilling prophecies. By reinforcing limiting beliefs, you shrink the scope of your possibilities, confining yourself to ever narrower definitions of who you are and what you're capable of achieving. Eventually, the gap between your current self and your ideal self widens until it seems insurmountable. Relationships suffer too, though the damage may be less obvious. Comfort zones breed stagnation, and stagnant people struggle to connect deeply with others. Conversations become transactional, interactions superficial, shared experiences devoid of spontaneity or surprise. Even romantic partnerships can fall prey to this dynamic, devolving into routines marked by obligation rather than passion. The spark that once ignited connection fades, replaced by the dull glow of familiarity. And while breaking patterns might initially create tension, failing to do so ensures the slow death of intimacy. Societally, the cumulative impact of millions of individuals trapped in their respective comfort zones is staggering. Collective progress depends on innovation, creativity, and courage, qualities stifled by widespread adherence to the status quo. Consider how many breakthroughs in science, art, and technology emerged from individuals willing to defy convention, to question established norms, to embrace discomfort in pursuit of discovery. Without such rebels, humanity would still dwell in caves, unaware of fire's warmth or the stars' mysteries. Today's cultural inertia mirrors yesterday's resistance to change, perpetuating cycles of mediocrity under the guise of stability. Moreover, the societal pressure to conform exacerbates personal paralysis. Social media platforms amplify this phenomenon, creating curated illusions of perfection that leave you feeling inadequate unless you measure up. Comparison breeds insecurity, which in turn reinforces the desire for safety. Why risk failure when success appears so distant, so unattainable? Yet this logic is flawed, for it overlooks the fact that every icon of achievement was once an ordinary person grappling with doubt and fear. Their greatness did not stem from avoiding discomfort, but from embracing it. Perhaps most insidiously, remaining in your comfort zone warps your perception of time. Days blur into weeks, months dissolve into years, and before you know it, decades have passed without meaningful progress. This temporal distortion stems from the monotony of routine, which strips life of its texture and vibrancy. Time seems to accelerate precisely because nothing remarkable interrupts its flow. In contrast, moments of challenge and novelty stretch your perception, imbuing each second with significance. By avoiding discomfort, you unwittingly hasten the passage of your finite days, trading depth for duration. And yet, despite these dire consequences, the allure of comfort remains potent. It whispers sweet lies, promising peace where there is none, security where there is only illusion. It convinces you that stepping outside your zone is reckless, irresponsible, selfish even. Who are you to disrupt the delicate balance of your life? Who are you to demand more when so many settle for less? These questions echo in your mind, sowing seeds of doubt that take root and flourish, choking out any impulse toward rebellion. But here lies the crux of the matter. The cost of compliance is higher than you realize. Each day spent within the confines of your comfort zone chips away at your essence, eroding the unique gifts you were born to offer the world. You owe it not only to yourself, but also to those around you to break free, to bring forth the fullness of your being, however imperfect or uncertain it may seem. For in doing so, you inspire others to do the same, creating ripples of transformation that extend far beyond your immediate sphere. As you contemplate these unseen forces, ask yourself, what are they costing you? How much of your potential remains untapped? How many dreams unfulfilled? How many connections unrealized? The answers lie buried beneath layers of conditioning, waiting to be unearthed. But digging requires tools sharper than regret, stronger than resolve. It demands a radical shift in perspective, one that challenges everything you thought you knew about safety, happiness, and fulfillment. That shift begins with rebellion, a refusal to accept the constraints imposed upon you by evolution, society, and your own psyche. It calls for counterintuitive solutions, mindset shifts, and examples drawn from those who dared to defy convention. Rebellion is not reckless. It is calculated, deliberate, transformative. It is the act of reclaiming control, of building a new framework for living that aligns with your deepest truths rather than external expectations. And it starts with a single step, a step outside the walls you've built, into the vast expanse of possibility awaiting beyond. Then let the rebellion begin. A revolution not of violence, but of vision, not of destruction, but of creation. To break free from the suffocating grip of your comfort zone requires more than mere willpower. It demands a radical reimagining of what it means to live fully, authentically, courageously. This is no ordinary uprising. It is an insurrection against the forces that seek to confine you, a declaration of independence from the tyranny of fear and familiarity. The first step in this rebellion is to dismantle the myth of safety. You have been conditioned to believe that staying within your comfort zone protects you from harm, but what if the opposite were true? What if the greatest dangers lie not in the unknown, but in the known, the slow erosion of your spirit, the quiet suffocation of your potential, the silent surrender to mediocrity? Consider Viktor Frankl's assertion that suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds meaning. By avoiding discomfort, you deny yourself the opportunity to discover purpose in struggle, to transform pain into power. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional, but only if you choose to embrace the former rather than flee from it. To rebel is to adopt a counterintuitive mindset, to see discomfort not as an enemy, but as an ally, not as a threat, but as a teacher. Every challenge you face carries within it the seed of growth, every failure the blueprint for success. Thomas Edison famously remarked that he hadn't failed 10,000 times in his quest to invent the light bulb. Instead, he had discovered 10,000 ways that didn't work. His genius lay not in avoiding mistakes, but in reframing them as stepping stones toward mastery. Can you do the same? Can you learn to view setbacks not as signs of inadequacy, but as invitations to evolve? History offers countless examples of individuals who defied convention and rewrote the rules of possibility. Frida Kahlo turned her physical suffering into artistic brilliance, painting masterpieces born of pain and resilience. Nelson Mandela endured decades of imprisonment only to emerge as a symbol of hope and reconciliation, proving that even the most oppressive circumstances can be transcended through unwavering conviction. Marie Curie ventured into uncharted scientific territory, risking her health and reputation to unlock the mysteries of radioactivity. These luminaries did not achieve greatness by playing it safe. They achieved it by embracing uncertainty, by daring to venture where others feared to tread. But rebellion is not reserved for the extraordinary few. It is available to anyone willing to confront their fears. Start small, with acts of micro-rebellion that stretch the boundaries of your comfort zone without overwhelming you. Speak up in a meeting when you'd rather stay silent. Take a different route home, one that forces you to notice unfamiliar landscapes. Strike up a conversation with a stranger, even if your instinct is to retreat into solitude. Each act of defiance, however minor, weakens the hold of habit and expands your capacity for courage. As you grow bolder, challenge yourself to take larger risks that align with your deepest values and aspirations. Perhaps it's quitting a job that drains your soul to pursue work that ignites your passion. Maybe it is ending a relationship that stifles your growth or embarking on a journey to a place you've never been. Whatever the risk, approach it with intentionality, clarity, and resolve. Ask yourself, what am I truly afraid of? And what might I gain by facing that fear? This process is not without its trials. Rebellion often feels like standing at the edge of a precipice, heart pounding, legs trembling, unsure whether to leap or retreat. The voice of doubt will whisper seductive lies, urging you to turn back, to preserve what little certainty remains. Resist it. Remember Nietzsche's proclamation that he who fights monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. In fighting the forces that constrain you, beware of becoming consumed by bitterness or cynicism. Instead, cultivate compassion for yourself, for others, for the flawed systems you seek to transcend. Central to this rebellion is the practice of mindfulness, of bringing conscious awareness to your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Gabor Mate reminds us that much of human suffering arises from disconnection, from our bodies, our feelings, our authentic selves. By cultivating presence, you reconnect with the core of who you are, untangling the knots of conditioning that bind you. Meditation, journaling, therapy, all serve as tools for excavating buried truths, for shining light on the shadows that shape your choices. Through mindfulness, you reclaim agency over your life, choosing actions rooted in awareness rather than reflexive reaction. Equally important is the cultivation of community. Rebellion thrives in connection, in shared purpose and mutual support. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to dream bigger, push harder, reach further. Seek out mentors, allies, comrades in arms who understand the value of stepping outside the norm. Together you form a collective force capable of disrupting entrenched patterns, challenging societal norms, and creating space for new paradigms to emerge. Yet rebellion is not merely an external act. It is an internal metamorphosis. It requires shedding old identities, releasing attachments to who you thought you were, and embracing the fluidity of becoming. Søren Kierkegaard spoke of the leap of faith, a moment when you abandon the familiar shore of reason and plunge into the depths of the absurd, trusting that meaning will reveal itself in the act of leaping. This leap is both terrifying and liberating, for it demands that you relinquish control while simultaneously claiming responsibility for your destiny. To claim this responsibility is to reclaim your power, to realize that you are the author of your story, the architect of your reality. No longer a passive recipient of circumstance, you become an active participant in shaping your fate. With each deliberate choice, you assert your sovereignty, declaring that you will no longer be ruled by fear, inertia, or expectation. You step into the role of creator, crafting a life that reflects your highest ideals and deepest desires. And yet, rebellion is not a solitary endeavor. It is part of a greater cycle of transformation. Just as winter gives way to spring, so too does stagnation give rise to renewal. The chaos you initially resist becomes the fertile ground from which new possibilities sprout. Embrace this paradox, for it holds the key to liberation. Growth emerges from disruption, order from disorder, clarity from confusion. Trust in the process, even when the path seems unclear. Now imagine yourself years from now, looking back on this moment of decision. Will you regret the risks you didn't take, the dreams you allowed to wither, the person you failed to become? Or will you celebrate the courage it took to defy convention, to embrace uncertainty, to forge a life of depth and significance? The answer depends not on external conditions, but on the choices you make today. So rise, rebel, reclaim. Break the chains that bind you, shatter the illusions that deceive you, and step boldly into the unknown. For beyond the walls of your comfort zone lies a world of infinite possibility, a world waiting for you to claim it, shape it, make it yours. The next revelation awaits, carrying with it the ultimate truth. That freedom is not found in escaping discomfort, but in embracing it, in transforming fear into fuel, in discovering that the greatest adventure is the journey inward. Then prepare to confront the ultimate truth, the revelation that redefines not only your understanding of comfort and growth, but also the very essence of what it means to be alive. This is not a conclusion in the traditional sense. It is an awakening, a paradigm shift so profound that it will alter how you perceive yourself, others, and the interconnected web of existence. It is the moment when the fragmented pieces of insight coalesce into a singular, radiant whole, a truth so undeniable that everything you've struggled with thus far suddenly makes sense. To begin, consider this. Your comfort zone has never truly existed. It was never a physical space or a tangible boundary. It was always a construct, an illusion born of fear, shaped by societal conditioning, reinforced by psychological defenses. The walls you believed confined you were never real. They were projections of your own mind, mirages erected to shield you from the vast, uncharted expanse of potential within and around you. What you feared stepping outside of was not a place but a story, a narrative you told yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and what life demands of you. This realization dismantles the foundation upon which your entire struggle rested. You have spent years, perhaps decades, wrestling with the tension between safety and risk, order and chaos, stagnation and growth. But what if these dichotomies are false? What if the true enemy was never the external world, but the internal dialogue that framed it as hostile, dangerous, insurmountable? The discomfort you sought to avoid wasn't inflicted upon you by circumstance. It arose from your resistance to it. Paradoxically, the more you fought against uncertainty, the more power you gave it over you. Here lies the crux of the matter. Freedom is not the absence of discomfort, it is the acceptance of it. True liberation comes not from escaping pain, but from embracing it, from recognizing that every challenge carries within it the seed of transformation. Pain is not punishment, it is initiation. It is the fire through which raw potential is forged into refined purpose. Without it, there can be no growth, no evolution, no transcendence. To live fully is to dance with discomfort, to see it not as an adversary but as a partner in the eternal choreography of becoming. But this acceptance goes deeper still. It requires surrender, not resignation, but radical trust in the process of life itself. Think back to Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, the love of fate. He urged humanity to embrace all aspects of existence, both light and dark, joy and suffering, triumph and tragedy. To say yes to life in its entirety is to transcend duality, to move beyond the childish desire for pleasure without pain, success without failure, certainty without ambiguity. In doing so, you align yourself with the flow of existence, becoming not a passive observer, but an active participant in the unfolding drama of creation. This alignment reveals another truth. Meaning is not something you find, it is something you create. Viktor Frankl taught us that even in the most horrific conditions, individuals could discover purpose through acts of love, creativity, and service. Meaning does not reside in external achievements or accolades. It emerges from the choices you make in response to life's challenges. Each decision, to endure, to innovate, to connect, is a brushstroke on the canvas of your existence, contributing to the masterpiece that is uniquely yours. Your task is not to seek perfection, but to contribute beauty, however imperfect it may seem. And yet, this act of creation extends far beyond the individual self. As you step into your full potential, you ripple outward, touching lives in ways you cannot predict or control. Every courageous choice you make inspires others to do the same, creating a chain reaction of transformation that reverberates across time and space. This interconnectedness underscores the deepest truth of all. You are not separate from the world. You are an integral part of it. Your liberation is tied to the liberation of others, just as your suffering is shared by humanity at large. To break free is not merely a personal victory, it is a collective one. Consider the implications of this interconnectedness. If your actions shape the world, then every moment becomes sacred, charged with infinite possibility. The mundane transforms into the miraculous. Washing dishes becomes an act of mindfulness. Walking down the street an opportunity for connection. Breathing a reminder of your aliveness. Life ceases to be a series of tasks to complete or goals to achieve. It becomes a symphony of experiences to savor, each note resonating with the harmony of the whole. In this state of presence, you realize that fulfillment is not a destination, but a way of being, a continuous engagement with the now. At this point, you may feel a profound sense of clarity, as though scales have fallen from your eyes. All the struggles, doubts, fears, they were necessary. They were the crucible in which your strength was forged, the trials that revealed your resilience. Without them, you would not stand here today, awakened to the truth of who you are and what you are capable of achieving. You see now that the journey was never about reaching some distant goal. It was about becoming someone capable of undertaking the journey itself. And yet this awakening is not the end. It is the beginning. With newfound awareness comes responsibility, the obligation to live in accordance with the truths you have uncovered. This means continuing to push boundaries, to question assumptions, to defy conventions that no longer serve you or the greater good. It means remaining vigilant against the creeping return of complacency, the subtle temptation to retreat into old patterns. Growth is not a linear progression. It is a spiral, ever expanding outward, while circling back to confront unresolved aspects of the self. As you step forward into this expanded reality, carry with you the wisdom of those who walked this path before you. Let Nietzsche remind you of the power of will, Camus of the beauty of absurdity, Frankl of the sanctity of meaning. Let Carlo teach you the art of transmuting pain into passion, Mandela the value of forgiveness and perseverance, Curie the importance of curiosity and courage. Their voices echo in your heart, guiding you as you forge your own legacy. Finally, remember this. The ultimate rebellion is not against external forces, but against the limits you impose upon yourself. It is the refusal to settle for anything less than the fullest expression of your being. It is the commitment to live authentically, vulnerably, courageously, to step into the arena of life knowing that you may stumble, fall, fail, but also knowing that you will rise again, stronger and wiser for the experience. This is freedom. This is life. So go forth, warrior of the soul, architect of possibility, bearer of light. Carry the torch of awareness into the darkness, illuminating paths where none seem to exist. Create, inspire, transform, and above all remain steadfast in the knowledge that you are limitless, not because you lack flaws or fears, but because you possess the power to overcome them. For in the end, the greatest comfort zone of all is the realization that you are already whole, already enough, already infinite.